So good morning. I'm not scheduled to either host or to lead today. There are people scheduled for both of those things. I just happen to be neither of them, but I'm here. So I do have the quiz for this past module. If you are meeting all of the requirements and you'd like to take that, just send me an email. Let me know. I'll send it to the same folks that have, previously as well. But if you haven't, maybe it's your first time wanting to take that. Um, so I have emailed Venerable Katie, who's meant to be, so we'll see how that goes. Did anyone, we could start, did anyone have um, maybe a question about, we still, of course, we have the discussion group also on this coming Monday as well. That's still, of course, you don't, that's optional, but did anyone have anything that maybe they would have a question about, or since the class is over, that maybe you were still confused about, or something that might be helpful in any way? You can just go ahead and unmute if there is anything.
Thank you so much for being here, Venerable.
Of course.
Last minute change. We really appreciate it.
This is so in general, for the retreat day, um, for this module, presenting the path, that's the third module is generally Venerable Yunten mentioned that she focused on the three principal aspects of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, the correct view of emptiness. In a way, it's sort of meant to be, the retreat day is sort of meant to be what they might call a lamrim retreat, lamrim meaning the stages of the path to enlightenment. So for the, there's, I mean, lots of different ways that you could structure it. They mention. So it's common with a Lamrim retreat to start with what they might call like a guru yoga kind of practice. I don't know if Venerable Yinton went over um, in the materials. It's not. It's really in establishing a daily practice where it's sort of a different thing where they bring in sort of an idea for that. But in any event, we'll go ahead and start with a Shakyamuni Buddha meditation, kind of as a guru deity yoga practice. So let's take a moment to reassert our motivation. We likely woke up with an intention, a motivation to participate in today's course. So we had some reason for our interest in wanting to do that, some genuine interest in developing the mind, tapping into our potential. So we just take a moment to think about what would it mean? What would it mean if I was successful in realizing my potential? Thinking of that not only for oneself, but what would it mean for others? How would I be able to be of greater benefit if I myself possessed greater wisdom, greater compassion, greater love? If I had more spaciousness in the mind, how could I then be of service, be of benefit? I think that's really the purpose of my time. Developing the skills, the ability, the capacity to be of benefit. And we begin by visualizing ourselves in a large open space. Our mother in this life on our right, our father on our left, being surrounded by all sentient beings as far as the eye can see. Visualizing in the space directly in front is the Buddha, seated upon a golden throne, upon which is an open lotus. Upon the open lotus is a sun and moon disk. Really feeling the Buddha's presence, the living energy of enlightenment in our own space. The embodiment of perfect love, perfect wisdom, perfect compassion. Thinking of the seven limb practice, recognizing the qualities of the Buddha and prostrating to them, thinking of making limitless offerings in order to receive the blessing energy of the Buddha. Confronting mistaken actions that we've engaged in, resolving to act more skillfully, to act in alignment with our spiritual aspirations, rejoicing in the basic goodness of ourselves and of others. And strongly requesting, entreating Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to remain, to turn the wheel of Dharma, and dedicating all of our positive energy, potential to the goal of enlightenment. And making a heartfelt request to receive the blessing energy of the Buddha, to be endowed with all of the realizations of the path. And think that the Buddha happily responds, coming to the crown of our head, becoming the size of the palm of one's hand, facing in the same direction recite the first two verses of the foundation of all good qualities as a way of articulating what we want to understand. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once is greatly meaningful and is difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. So pause and meditate on precious human or perfect human rebirth. Thinking of the richnesses, the endowments, the positive qualities that characterize our lives. Thinking of the unique intelligence of a human life. Having woken up yet again in this perfect human rebirth, the ability to contemplate, to intentionally develop the mind. Having inherited a world, a time and place where a Buddha has come, a Buddha has taught, those teachings still remain, are still understood, still widely practiced. There's still many places of learning, many realized masters in the world. I think I myself have some genuine interest in countless other people who have all of these internal, external conditions, but are focused only on power, wealth, status. But I myself genuinely wish to develop my mind. To think of all of these incredibly conducive conditions that do in fact characterize this life. And just feel a sense of genuine joy. One thing too, that there are many negative experiences that I'm not currently experiencing. There are incredible sufferings occurring even within the human realm that I am free from. There are many places where war is predominant, where crushing poverty, famine, disease are overwhelming the lives of the people who live there. Many places where there are various forms of political, social oppression, prohibiting study and spirituality. And then there are other realms of existence where the sufferings are even greater. The impossibility of making spiritual progress in the animal realm, hungry ghost realm, the hell realm. Even the pervasive distraction to sensory pleasure in the upper realm. All of these negativities I am free from. So again, feel a genuine sense of relief and joy. Recognizing that if someone were to construct a human life that was the most well suited to spiritual growth and development, would look very much like mine. And try to give rise to a strong resolve, a strong determination in the mind to use this life wisely, as it says in the foundation of all good qualities, to take the essence of this perfect human rebirth, to extract the essence by putting effort, energy into our spiritual practice, turning away from distraction. Set that strong resolve in the mind and focus on it without distraction. Resting your mind in that determination. And then when you're ready, we'll come back together. All right. So, has anyone thought of um, a question or a topic from the course that was still eluding them at all, or that they would benefit from discussion on? Yes, Samantha.
Venerable, I'm curious where this course in the extra reading material, it was on the long rim, but as you mentioned, we didn't necessarily learn so much of the long rim. I'm curious if the rest of Discovering Buddhism from here on out, because the next course is on the teacher, correct? So I'm curious if the rest of
Mhm.
the time just goes more in depth into the long rim per module.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, discovering Buddhism is sort of patterned after the Lamrim as a 2 year exploration. So, I mean, the first module is about, you know, it's sort of setting things up, the first three modules in a way, because you have the module that talks about the mind, the function of, because that's what, of course, that's what the Buddha is interested in, is how to develop the mind. So it's about, the mechanics of the mind, the mental factors, and, that sort of thing is the first module. And then meditation is really the technology, the vehicle mainly that you use. Of course, there's the three wisdoms, the wisdom that arises through listening, the wisdom that arises through contemplating, and ultimately the wisdom that arises through meditating. So, formal study, formal meditation is meant to change the mind. So that's, the first two modules are kind of setting the stage for how to do what we're trying to do. And then the third module, I didn't look at any of the recordings, so I don't. But it can be, it's kind of meant to set the stage to help you get a general sense of what the Lam Rim is about. What you're meant to accomplish through the Lam Rim. And Venerable Yunton was saying that she focused on those, one way of thinking about that. There's two ways of thinking about that. One is the motivation of the practitioner, which is organizing the Lam Rim in the three scopes: the small scope, the middling scope, and the great scope. And then another way of thinking about that. So a small scope practitioner is a practitioner who is turning away from looking at cyclic existence as a good in and of itself, as just trying to get positive experiences, and being immersed in just looking at samsara as something that is inherently a good in and of itself. So that practitioner understands that um, they are turning away from creating the causes of the worst kinds of suffering, and they're not interested in really even the pleasures of this life alone. They are looking to the future. They are turning away from creating the causes of the worst kinds of suffering, and they are looking at, creating better conditions for future lives. And then, so that in and of itself is a form of renunciation. That in and of itself is, because what is renunciation or definite emergence? It is a reorientation of what a person might otherwise do or want to do or be attracted to. So there are many people who might look at the world and think, oh, well, if I steal, if I, oppress, if I manipulate, if I deceive, then I see examples of people doing that and being successful, getting ahead in business, getting ahead in different fields, gaining some measure of um, wealth, of status, of power through these unethical means. But a practitioner on the small scope would say, well, I'm not interested in, I understand that the karmic repercussions of killing, of lying, of, these the 10 non-virtuous actions, that those repercussions ultimately are more harmful, that that will actually bring me more suffering. So renunciation in a way starts, even on the small scope, because you're closing the door to certain ways of being in the world that would be open to someone who didn't have any ethics, didn't have any foundation in, they would just take what they wanted or manipulate to get what they wanted. But a practitioner of the small scope says, no, I won't do that. I won't engage in that kind of behavior, because I understand that the long-term repercussions, even if I get more wealth, more status, more power in just this one life, I've got all of these other lives coming down the pike, and I have to focus more about that than I'm focused on just accumulating in this life. So renunciation kind of in a way starts there, by taking some things off the table. But then on the middle scope, that practitioner deepens that sense of renunciation or the wish to definitely emerge from suffering by becoming weary with all of cyclic existence, by seeing that, yes, I can create the causes of good future rebirths. That's a thing I can do. And I definitely should still be concerned about closing the door to the worst kinds of suffering. So I'm going to, that's still important. I understand the importance of that. But I'm starting to see here, I'm starting to refine or deepen my renunciation or my wish to definitely emerge from suffering by understanding that good future rebirths, um, still have suffering, are still conditioned by suffering. They're comparatively good, they're comparatively more useful than rebirths in the lower realms, but they're still conditioned by suffering. So I should aim not only for good future rebirths, but I should aim for good future rebirths in the context of creating the causes and the conditions to complete my spiritual path, which might very likely take more than a single lifetime to complete. I may not be finished at the end of this life. I may need a succession of good future rebirths to finish what I'm starting. So I understand that, I recognize that, and I'm going to do that, but not because they're comparatively better, but because they'll give me the time and the space to finish the work that I'm starting. And then even on the great scope, that motivation deepens further or is refined further by the understanding that the motivation of the first two levels is only focused on oneself, that it's leaving out all other sentient beings, that, I myself could put an end to suffering. I myself could achieve my own highest welfare, but what about everybody else? What about all of these kind mother sentient beings that have, been my own mother time and time again over beginningless past lives, who've shown me incredible, saved my own life, fed me from their bodies, protected me, clothed me, bathed me, provided me everything that I know and that I enjoy, that I have, that I benefit from. They are still stuck. If I just go off into the sunset, what about all of these other sentient beings? So the motivation on the great scope becomes one of bodhicitta, becomes one of wishing to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So really each of the remaining topics is going to take the major section of a lamrim and give you one topic, because as we just, as we just read in the Foundation of All Good Qualities, the first topic is guru devotion, is correctly relating to the spiritual guide, so that you get a whole module on that. And then death and impermanence, you get a whole module on death and impermanence, and so on. And so, goes like that, progresses like that for the rest of the course. Any other thoughts or questions? No? Let's take a 5 minute. Yes, Robert.
Can you hear me? Okay. Just a general question, and maybe it's toward the group too. How do you best way to go and study for this class? I know meditation, maybe going over definitions, going over notes. So it doesn't seem like it's an academic like class. It's got touches of it, but it's also like you need to self absorb it. So it's kind of, guess, what's the best practice for working through these classes?
I don't know, what do people think? What's been most helpful for you? T-Joy.
Yes, I'll just add like what's been helpful for me is I did see like in the course material there are supportive books. but I haven't been able to like really dive into them like I would like yet. But going to the evening express, I think it's called evening express meditations, because Venerable Katie does the Vajrasattva meditation, and that is something we did do. Um, I remember one night in particular in this course, and it was just not easy for me to grasp, that quickly, of course. But I find going to sometimes the morning and the evening meditations are very supportive with the practice. So that's I just wanted.
Yes, Cynthia.
Hi, Venerable Donjo. Thanks for being here with us. But just to share my experience, I actually accidentally ended up in the Lamrim class, if you remember, Venerable. So I just started and I was attending introductory classes, which is Discovering Buddhism is part of it. And the Lamrim class started. There's some different, I think, versions of it, but it's essentially the stages of the path. But it's a lot more, and don't have correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a lot more in-depth discussion of what we're taking now. So I just ended up attending those and I just got really immersed in it. Especially if you have a good teacher, um, you just start to keep on going, and a lot of it is confusing, but then certain pieces fall into place and you grasp certain things. And that's where I understood, oh, that's kind of have a sense of the structure of, or at least the things that you don't know, and then start to look for those, if that makes sense. So that's just kind of what I experienced.
Yeah, and so I mean, I find I think if a person's looking for a single book that covers the Lam Rim, because as I mentioned, over the course of the 2 years, this Discovering Buddhism is really patterned after the Lam Rim. The book that Shanka's using, is that you're talking about Shanka's class on Fridays and Sundays, or is that the one, Cynthia, the experiential
No,
Lam
it
Rim,
was the
or many
Dr.
years
Lawrence
ago?
class. Yeah.
Uh,
It took the 3 year one. I think it was more than 3 years, 3.5 years. Yeah.
mhm.
I'm doing a review with Shavasti, but yeah, it's
When he did
similar, I think.
the basic program on the middle length Lam Rim, yeah, that was like was like a 4 year class. Yeah. Yeah, it was a wonderful class. So yeah, so that class used the middling length Rim, which is a book by Lama Tsongkhapa, and we recited, at the beginning, the foundation of all good qualities, which is also Lama Tsongkhapa. It's his briefest Rim. It's not really a Rim text; it's a Rim prayer. The purpose of the foundation of all good qualities really is kind of how we used it. You memorize it because it's only 2 pages or so, and then you recite it and you stop. On that day for whatever you're going to meditate on. So if you're for next module, you might only recite, well, you would recite it all the way through generally. We didn't do that here, but often you would recite it once all the way through, because the purpose of that is to familiarize your mind, with each stanza is presenting you a topic of the Lam Rim. So it goes through the whole Lam Rim in about 2 pages, but it doesn't really teach you the Lam Rim, because it's meant to just refresh in your own mind, do your own understanding. So you have to use other things to actually learn the Lam Rim. But then you would recite, just the verse that you were going to meditate on, and then you would pause and you would do the meditation on that. Yeah. So the middling length lam rim isn't necessarily where I would start if a person hasn't really read the lam rim. But Yangtze Rinpoche is practicing the path, which is what Shanka is using and what I think is a wonderful book to start because it's a single volume. Eventually, everybody will, read Lama Tsongkhapa's Lam Rim Chenmo, the great treatise on the Lam Rim. It's a 3-volume work. The main difference between the middling length Lam Rim and the great treatise is that the great treatise has a lot more citations in it. They kind of, one way of talking about it is that the middling length Lam Rim is kind of the meditator's Lam Rim. And the Great Treatise is more of a scholarly work because it has a lot more citations, a lot more pieces from other places that are brought into it. But Yangtze Rinpoche's Practicing the Path is a commentary on the Lamrim Chenmo, the Great Treatise. It's a single volume. Yangtze Rinpoche is alive. He's at Maitripa. He wrote it for the Western mind. So it's a really great book in general. I know that this class is emphasizing Pabanka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand as a companion book in general. And that is a very well-renowned book on the Lam Rim as well. It's just not my personal favorite. I like Yangtze Rinpoche's Practicing the Path, but getting Pabanka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand is what is sort of technically recommended for discovering Buddhism as well. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, I would say, looking at all of the supplementary material and the reading material, I think is very helpful. All of the courses, they come with recommended additional readings and required readings and the additional recommended readings. It's a lot of reading I am aware that in general, discovering Buddhism is a lot of reading. Anything else? Okay, so let's take a 5-minute break. Get up and get a drink of water, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. So we just familiarized our mind with our own perfect human rebirth, precious human rebirth, the purpose of which is to, I always say that each of the topics of the Lam Rim is giving us a spiritual antidote or a spiritual solution to a problem that the Buddha identified. And that was why he gave teachings on the topic, because he was trying to help us overcome a problem that he observed that we had that was blocking our enlightenment. If the only difference between ourselves and the Buddha is the time and the energy and the effort into, moving in that direction, then what are the common, roadblocks? How do you look at a population and say, well, on a population scale, these are the things that people struggle with. These are the things that are going to come up for them as obstacles to their own enlightenment. And with regard to perfect human rebirth, the obstacles there are really just taking our lives for granted, thinking that there's nothing special, there's nothing unique, there's nothing difficult about achieving it. It's just something, we look at the world and we just think, oh, well, of course that things are like this. My life has always been like this. My life will always be like this. And then, when I die, I'll just get another one and, it's easy. That way of thinking from the Buddhist perspective is mistaken and it's a problem. And we need to overcome that way of thinking in order to really, have the fuel, have the moment, have the interest in taking the essence of this life by seeing it as precious, by seeing it as not common, by recognizing that for all of these technically these 18 different qualities combine between the freedoms and the richnesses, the endowments, and the freedoms, negative things that we're free from, positive things that we possess, these 18 qualities in total. For all of these 18 qualities to come together all at once in a human rebirth is something that is incredibly rare. Venerable Yunton may have told the story of the blind turtle in the ocean. I don't know if she mentioned that story, but the analogy that they use is that getting this perfect human rebirth is like being a turtle, a sea turtle, that's dropped off in the Pacific. And the turtle is not only just a turtle, but it's a blind turtle, right? So it can't even look where it can't even like adjust its movements because it can't look at something and intentionally move toward it. But this sea turtle comes up for air. It's a special sea turtle. It mostly breathes underwater. But like they say, I don't know, once every 100 years or once every 1,000 years, it comes up for air just once. And so you drop a blind sea turtle in the Pacific, and then you drop a circlet of gold, a golden ring in like the Atlantic, right? Small, about the size of a dinner plate or something. So in two different oceans, you drop these two things, and this blind sea turtle is coming up for air once every 100 years. And even if this circlet of gold is 5 feet away, because the sea turtle is blind, it can't swim over 5 feet and come up. And they say that the chance of a perfect human rebirth just coming together with these 18 qualities has about the same odds of this blind sea turtle coming up for air and its head, coming up through this golden ring. Um, Now, the caveat to that is talking about just a mind that is experiencing probably the lower realms, um, and then just all of these qualities and conditions coming together in a perfect human rebirth in the next incarnation. The good news is once you possess a perfect human rebirth, as we all do, you can then use that time to create these causes and these conditions and change. It isn't to say, even if we look back at that verse where you know, it says found only once, and then it says difficult to find again, right? And those two sentences, they're talking about two different things. They can't literally both be true. Because if you literally can find something only once, then it can't be that it's only difficult to find again. But these causes and these conditions coming together in essentially almost randomly, and of course, karma is not random, but coming together from, say, for example, the lower realms, and then manifesting all at once in the perfect human rebirth, that is as if it only happens once because it happens so infrequently. And then, but once it happens, then still difficult. No one's saying that creating the causes and the conditions of additional perfect human rebirths is easy, but it's doable. It's so much more doable than, once you're in possession of that and once you can learn and understand what to practice, what to discard, what to do with your life to create these karmic causes and conditions, then you really can use even just a single perfect human rebirth to create this succession of perfect human rebirths that you most likely will need to practice, to continue practicing the path. So the next topic that we're going to familiarize our mind with is death and impermanence. So we have just familiarized our mind with how exceptional, how extraordinary our lives are, which is meant to overcome, again, as I said, overcome the view that it's ordinary, overcome the view that it isn't special, that everyone has this, that it's easy. Those are all roadblocks to our enlightenment. But another roadblock to our enlightenment is thinking, even if I do possess this really amazing thing, that it's going to last forever, that it's not going to change, that, I have more time, I can just do it later, I can wait until the causes, until things are different, until things are better, things are better at work, things are better at home, I have more time, I've taken, I've changed my conditions, and now I can practice, now I can start. But the meditation on death is not to be morbid, but it's meant to help us to understand that we don't know that that's true, that isn't a valid way of thinking, just like thinking that this is nothing special, that this is commonplace, that this is easy. That's a mistaken way of thinking that I can just keep putting this off, I can just figure it out later, I can just do it in the future. There may not be a future. This may be our last day on earth. We may wake up tomorrow in a different incarnation. And so that mistaken way of thinking is overcome by contemplating death. And that's what we will do right now. So, again, get into a comfortable position. And just recollect from the previous meditation, recollect that the Buddha has alighted on the crown of your head, that he is present, and his blessing energy is present in your space. Begin to contemplate the inevitability of our own death. So think about people from the past, people who have accomplished extraordinary feats. The most famous writers, musicians, kings, queens, generals, scientists, philosophers, all of the most influential, extraordinary people. And think that none of them succeeded in avoiding their own deaths. No matter how much wealth or status or power, property, no matter what contributions they made, all of their lives came to an end. Even the Buddha showed the aspect of passing away. So bring to mind your own examples. And think too of the people from your own life that have passed away, friends, relatives, acquaintances. Think of the 8 or so billion people alive right now, going to work, raising family. And think in 100 years, almost no one alive right now will be alive. That I myself will certainly be gone. I think that in terms of one's own life, that the coming together of body and mind began in the womb. And from that moment to this moment has been an uninterrupted flow of time, leading to the moment where body and mind will separate at death. As though the moment of birth is falling from an airplane without a parachute, watching the ground get larger and larger as the number of moments remaining in this life decrease, as they can only ever decrease. When we sleep, when we are distracted, those moments are still counting down. We have no ability to add additional time. kind of generate a visceral sense of that inexorable passing of time. And then think that of those remaining moments, the number of them that I will be able to use to develop my mind is quite small. Between the time of my birth and now, those moments have been also infrequent. I spent my childhood in play, my younger life in school and work, so many hours spent sleeping, engaging in entertainment, socializing, so much time wasted in boredom, depression, resentment. The amount of time in my life really dedicated to spiritual growth is quite small. When we contemplate this first point that I definitely will die, we try to give rise to a determination to engage in spiritual practice, to use this life wisely. I think I must. And we realize that although my death is definite, the timing of my death is indefinite, completely uncertain. Within the human realm, the human experience, there is no fixed time. There are many human beings who die in childhood, who die as very young adults. Mm, thousands and thousands of human beings who went to sleep last night with plans, with expectations, and did not wake up this morning. There are many who left this morning to go various places, do various things, who won't come home. There are many elderly people who seem quite ill, who are going to live longer than many young, vital, strong, healthy people. So bring to mind these examples, these facts of life, and generate a strong understanding of the complete uncertainty of the time of death. And contemplate as well that the causes of our death are innumerable. There are many external causes, fires, floods, car crashes, plane crashes, violence, also hundreds of internal causes, countless illnesses, infections, viruses, even food and drink and medicine, the things that we take to support our life, can be contaminated and bring about our death. And think of the fragility of the human body, how easily the flesh is ripped open, or taken over by microscopic viruses, bacteria. Contemplating in this way, try to give rise to a strong visceral realization of the complete uncertainty of the time of your death. On the basis of that, be strongly determined not only to practice, but to practice without delay. Energy and effort into your practice right now. And then we contemplate that when the time of my death arrives, it is only the content of my mind that is of any benefit to me. Only my spiritual insights, familiarities, my genuine habits, tendencies, the actual content of my mind is the only thing of any value. None of my wealth, my status, my property, even if I'm surrounded with friends, with loved ones, at that time, the mind is withdrawing from the world, from the body. The mind is going forth alone. What is the mind experiencing that death, that separation? And if at that time strong attachment arises, then that will be an obstacle. If I fight against the separation of body and mind when that separation can't be prevented, then my death might be disturbed, unpeaceful. Even my own body, is of no benefit to me at the time of death. I've spent so many hours feeding and cleaning, protecting, nourishing, developing this body. It's of no benefit to me at that moment. To think of the ways in which attachment to friends, to possessions, and to the body might be obstacles, might be hindrances to this inevitable separation. And try to be determined to address these attachments, a sense of clinging, feeling that it would be intolerable to be separated when that separation is inevitable. How can that be addressed between now and then? And think that not only must I practice my spiritual path, and not only must I practice it now, but I must practice it purely, in a way that is unstained by the wish for power, for wealth, for status. Not looking for comfort, reputation, as it is only the familiarities, the tendencies, the habits, the positive mental karmas that I can develop in this life that will aid me at the time of death. And then when you're ready, we'll come back together. All right, any questions, thoughts? All right, we'll break for lunch and we'll come back at 1:30. Unless there's anything. And so since it is, a retreat day, do your best to, during the break time, to try to avoid immediately going to, the television or some sort of entertainment. Try to, eat mindfully, to maybe read something related instead of, just doing as it's meant to be a retreat day. So, listen, you can, I find it helpful sometimes to just get a video. If I want to watch something, because I have this thing where even as a child, like my food would get cold when I was like trying to watch something. I have to like watch something. So I would just turn it like, but if you just find a video, like a teaching, you can watch His Holiness or, Lama Zoparmi, find something like that. That can be, if you have the habit of like needing to have stimulation, it can be a teaching rather than something that's not helpful. Huh. But okay. So we'll be back at 1:30 unless there's a question or. All right, have a good lunch.